Hello guys, welcome to another story. Today I have another one that really hits. I felt this one the moment I heard it, and I had to bring it to you. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Let's see if we can hit at least 1,000 subs. And to everyone watching, please like this video, it really helps with the algorithm. Alright, let's get into the story. Whether you're watching or just listening, you're really gonna enjoy this one. Let's go. I don't even know how to explain this. I feel like if I tell someone, they won't believe me. Hell, I wouldn't believe me. But I need to say it. Maybe if I say it out loud, it'll make sense. I was coming home from work that night. Same drive I take every day, same route. Same quiet stretch of road where the streetlights are barely there. You know the kind, two-lane, cracked asphalt, darkness pressing in on all sides. If your car breaks down there, you're on your own. I always drive fast when I reach that part, right by the funeral home. Maybe it's stupid, but I don't like slowing down there. I don't even like looking in that direction. My headlights cut through the darkness, and that's when I saw them. Couple walking. The woman had a child strapped to her back, wrapped in one of those cloth slings. The man was holding her hand, but the way he walked, something about it made me uneasy. His other hand was stuffed deep in his pocket, gripping something. I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind was a knife. They had no flashlights, no phone light, just walking like they belonged in the darkness. Then the man turned. His head moved first, slow and deliberate. His body followed like an afterthought. His face caught my headlights, and I swear he was looking straight at me, staring. Not the way you look at a passing car. No, it was like he was waiting for me, like he knew me. Then he waved. It wasn't a normal wave. Not a "hey, can you help us" kind of wave. It was slow, casual, like he was inviting me closer. I didn't move. My hands clenched the wheel. My foot hovered over the gas. Every instinct in my body told me not to stop. I didn't. I pressed down on the gas hard. I shot past them, my tires kicking up dust and gravel. But right as I passed, I saw it through the rearview mirror. The man smiled, and he waved again. I kept my eyes on the road, but when I checked again, they were still walking. No, he was still walking, still heading forward like nothing had happened. Because I never saw the woman again, I turned into my driveway so fast that I nearly scraped the mailbox. My hands were sweating. I put the car in park, killed the engine, grabbed my work bag, and bolted inside, slamming the door shut as I tried to slow my breathing. I was overreacting, right? Just some couple out late. Maybe their car broke down. Maybe they lived nearby. Maybe, about 2 minutes later, my car alarm went off. The sound made my heart jump into my throat. I turned to the window, and there he was. The man. The woman was gone. It was just him, standing by my car, his hand on the handle, pulling at it like he was testing if it was unlocked. I backed away from the window, my mind racing. I didn't know what to do. Call the cops? Run outside and confront him? Before I could decide, I turned and sprinted inside. Mom! She was in the kitchen, mashing potatoes like it was just another night. She glanced up, frowning. What's with the yelling? There's a guy outside. He was messing with my car. She sighed. Probably just some random dude. I shook my head. No, Mom. He was on the road when I came home. He waved at me, and now he's outside. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, still looking unimpressed. Did you lock the car? I don't know. The alarm got louder. The noise filled the whole house. That got her attention. She dropped the towel and walked toward the living room, where the front door was. I followed her, my heart pounding. Then, everything went black. The power shut off. The entire house sank into darkness. And then knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks on the front door. We froze. Neither of us spoke. Then I swallowed my fear and forced myself to say something. "What do you want?" There was silence. And then a voice, casual, almost amused. "Yo, man, I got your car keys. Give me $500 and I have." My stomach dropped. I patted my pockets. My keys were gone. Then I heard it. The sound of keys dangling, jingling, like he was playing with them. My keys, my car keys. Couldn't breathe. I just stood there, my heart hammering in my chest. Mom's breathing had changed. I could hear it. It was quick, uneven. She wasn't as calm anymore. "Listen, man." I tried to keep my voice steady, but it shook. "How much?" $500, man." The voice came back, just as casual as before, like we were making some deal outside a gas station. "I got your keys right here. You want 'em or not?" I could barely think. Everything felt off. Nothing about this made sense. Then something inside me snapped. "I got a gun," I said. My voice was louder this time. "If you don't leave my keys on the car and get the hell out of here, I'll shoot you." I gripped the doorknob, waiting for something, anything, a response, footsteps, a retreat. But there was nothing. Then I heard footsteps, not away from the house. It was toward the car. I rushed to the window, my mom right behind me. The man walked over to the car door like he hadn't heard a word I said. Then he opened it. My stomach twisted. He was about to get inside. And then bang. The sound was deafening. Then again bang. I flinched, my ears ringing. I turned to my mom. The gun in her hands trembled slightly, smoke curling from the barrel. I had never even known she owned a gun. I turned back. The man was still standing there. He hadn't dropped, hadn't even flinched. 2 direct shots, and he was still standing. I saw my mom's face. The color drained from it. She was just as shocked as I was. The man slowly turned his head to look at us. Then he smiled. Not an angry smile, not even a mocking one. It was like pity. He climbed into the driver's seat, shut the door, and rolled down the window. Just before he sped off, he spoke. "I'm not as bad as you think." Then the tires screeched, and the car was gone. For a few seconds after he drove off, we just stood there. The air felt thick, like the whole house was holding its breath. I couldn't move. I kept staring at the driveway, like maybe my car would suddenly be back. Like maybe this was all just some kind of messed up dream. Then finally I exhaled. Mom was the first to break the silence. "Is he gone?" I looked out through the window, scanning the yard, the street, the darkness beyond. Nothing. Just the night stretching out like it always had. Like none of this had even happened. "I think so," I said, but my voice didn't sound right. Even I didn't believe what I was saying. We stayed inside for another 5 minutes, just waiting, watching, listening. Then, without saying a word, we both rushed to the door. Mom unlocked it and we stepped outside. The night air hit me like a slap. It smelled different. Or maybe it was just me. My skin felt clammy, like I just walked out of a fever dream. But something was off. The neighbors' lights were all on. Every single one of them. Our house? Still pitch black. Mom turned in a slow circle, looking at the other houses. "What the hell?" she whispered. It didn't make sense. The whole street had power, just not our house. I looked up at the power lines. then back at our front door, as if the answer would just be floating in the air. Okay, Mom exhaled. Okay, let's just... Her voice cut off. Something was on the ground, right there at the doorstep, a folded piece of paper. For a second, I thought it had fallen out of my work bag. Maybe I dropped it when I ran inside. But something in my gut twisted. This wasn't mine. I reached down and picked it up. What is it? Mom asked. Maybe one of my worksheets? I muttered as we headed inside. Do you think? Whatever, Mom. I'm not in the mood. I cut her off, bolting upstairs to my room. The moment I stepped inside, I slammed the door shut. I turned the paper over in my hands. It was slightly damp, like someone had been holding it with sweaty fingers. My throat felt dry. I swallowed hard and unfolded it. The handwriting was rushed, slanted, uneven, like someone had written it fast. Hey, I'm not a bad guy, but sometimes life puts you in situations where you gotta do things you never planned to. You don't know my story, and I don't plan on telling it. Your car is at... He wrote the location which I won't share for security reasons. Please send $500 to this account, and you can go pick it up. I just stood there. My pulse pounded in my ears. Something in my gut twisted. I didn't know why, but I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of the note. Then, a scream ripped out of me. Mom! I bolted down the stairs. Mom grabbed my arm. What is it? I couldn't speak. I just turned the note around so she could see. Her eyes moved slowly across the words, taking in each letter, one by one. Then, she snapped. This is not happening, she said, her voice rising. You are not sending that bastard a dime. Her hands curled into fists, shaking. I had never seen her this angry before. I swallowed. Mom, listen. No. No, no, no. She was shaking her head, pacing back and forth. Some lunatic steals your car, shows up at our house in the middle of the night, and now you want to reward him? He has my car. I don't give a fuck, she yelled. I clenched my jaw. It's my car, Mom. She stopped pacing, stared at me. Something in her face changed. She took a slow breath, and then she smiled. Not a kind smile. Not an I understand smile. It was a you have no idea what's coming next smile. Let me see that paper again, she said, voice calm. I hesitated. Why? Just let me see it. I sighed and handed it to her. She took it, looked at it, nodded. Then she turned, walked over to the sink, turned on the tap, and shoved the note under the water. I lunged forward. What the hell? She pulled it out, soaked, and before I could grab it, she tore it into pieces and threw them in my face. I stared at her. My breath caught in my throat. For a second, I couldn't even speak. Then, without a word, I turned and bolted up the stairs. Behind me, her voice followed. Are you out of your damn mind? She shouted. Some guy steals your car, and you want to pay him for it? What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't answer. I reached my room, slammed the door shut. My whole body was buzzing. My hands clenched into fists. My car. My damn car. And she just... I sat down hard on the bed, staring at the wall. Downstairs, the house was silent. 20 minutes later, a knock came at the door soft. Then again, Mom's voice. Hey, I'm sorry, kid. I closed my eyes. You're still my baby, no matter how old you are. But you gotta understand. This isn't right. I didn't say anything. She let out a sigh. I'll leave your dinner in the kitchen, she said. Eat when you're ready. Then, Footsteps. Fading. Then nothing. I stayed there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet, my chest tight. Somewhere out there, my car was sitting in some lot, and I had no idea what I was going to do next. That night, sleep wasn't even an option. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind a mess. The whole night kept playing in my head like a broken record. The car, the man, the damn note. I turned over, grabbed my phone off the nightstand, and unlocked it. The picture of the note was still there. That same rushed handwriting. That same damn message. Hey, I'm not a bad guy, but sometimes life puts you in situations where you gotta do things you never planned to. You don't know my story, and I don't plan on telling it. My thumb hovered over the screen, over the bank details. My chest was tight. I knew what I was about to do was stupid, but tap. I sent $500. I turned the phone over and let it drop onto my bed. Whatever this was, it was over now. Or at least that's what I told myself. The next morning a knock came at the door. Sharp, loud. I sat up fast. My head was still heavy from barely sleeping. Mom's shower was running. She hadn't heard it. Then came another knock. I grabbed a shirt, pulled it over my head, and made my way downstairs. My heart was pounding, but I didn't know why. I unlocked the door and pulled it open. 2 cops were standing there. "Morning," one of them said, his face unreadable. "Do you still have the account number your mom told us about?" My stomach dropped. I forced a neutral face. "No." He nodded slowly, like he already expected that answer. And right then I knew. Mom had already called them. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't say anything. The second cop looked at me. "Go put on some proper clothes. We're gonna check out the location." Mom was already coming down the stairs by the time I turned. She was fully dressed, hair wrapped in a towel, like she had already planned for this moment. "Let's go," she said. I didn't argue. The drive there was only 10 minutes. 10 long, quiet, uncomfortable minutes. The cops were in their car. We followed behind in Mom's. She hadn't said a word since we left. Neither had I. Finally, we pulled up to the spot. An empty parking lot. Behind it, a row of abandoned-looking storage units. The cops went first, stepping out of their car without a word. Mom and I stayed back. One of the cops scanned the area, then stopped. He raised a hand. "There." I looked where he was pointing. My car. Just sitting there. Like it hadn't been stolen. Like it had been there all along. Something about it felt wrong. Like it wasn't really mine anymore. The cops checked around. No signs of forced entry. No evidence anyone had been there at all. One of them called it in. "Cars here. No suspect in sight." The other officer turned to us. "You can take it." I blinked. "That's it." He nodded. "That's it." I walked up to the car. The keys were sitting on the driver's seat. No sign of the guy. Nothing. I picked up the keys, glanced at Mom. She didn't say a word, just got back in her own car. I slid into the driver's seat. Something about it felt different, like I was sitting in something that wasn't mine anymore. I gripped the wheel, started the engine. Came to life like nothing had ever happened. But something had happened, and I was about to find out just how much worse it really was. Back at the house, the cops stayed a little longer. "We're going to check the street cameras," one of them said, "just to see if we can track where he came from." Mom folded her arms. "You think that's gonna help?" The cop hesitated. "We'll see." Later that evening, they came back. I opened the door. The looks on their faces. Something wasn't right. "We checked the cameras," the officer said. "And we need to show you something." They pulled out a laptop. Hit play. The footage showed me pulling up, getting out of my car, running inside the house. Then, a few seconds later, the car's lights flashed, the same way they had when he was tampering with the handle. But there was no one there. No one. The footage played on. The car alarm blared. But the screen? Just an empty driveway. Then suddenly the car started moving. The driver's side door swung open. The seatbelt pulled itself forward, like someone was getting in. But there was no one. The door slammed shut, and the car peeled out of the driveway. Couldn't breathe. I looked at the cop. "There's no footage of him?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not at your door. Not on your street. Not anywhere." I swallowed. My hands felt ice cold. The second officer cleared his throat. "We also asked your neighbors if they heard anything." I glanced at Mom. "What did they say?" she asked. The officer hesitated. "They heard the noises, the yelling, the car alarm, and the gunshots?" Mom pressed. The cop's expression darkened. "No," he said. "No one heard any gunshots." A thick silence filled the room. Mom took a step back. "But I shot at him. Twice." The cop nodded. "But there's no evidence of that. No bullets. No casings. No holes in the walls. No footage of anyone even being there. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense." The officer sighed, shutting the laptop. "There's nothing else we can do," he said. "Your car is back. There's no suspect, no footage, no evidence of a crime." He gave me a look. "Take it as a win." A win. That's what this was? I watched as they left, shutting the door behind them. Mom and I stood there. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. The whole thing just didn't feel real anymore. Days passed, but the feeling never left. The whole thing sat in my chest like a weight, like something unfinished. Sunday evening, Mom and I sat at the table eating in silence. Finally, she set her fork down. "We have to move on," she said. I looked up at her. She sighed. "Some things don't have explanations, and maybe they never will, but we can't keep thinking about it. We have to let it go." I didn't respond. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "We move on," she said softly. I swallowed, then nodded. We finished dinner in silence. But as I sat there, eating, something gnawed at the back of my mind. A small, quiet thought. I had sent the money. I had given him what he asked for. But if he was never really there, then where the hell did my money go? Quick question before we continue. What time are you watching this video? Let us know in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's continue. Monday morning came, but my mind wasn't in the right place. Work felt like a blur. I went through the motions at the bank, but my thoughts kept circling back to the night before. The stolen car, the note, the way the police couldn't find any footage of the guy. It made no sense. But something was bothering me more than all of that. The bank account. At lunch, I started looking into it. Just basic stuff. I wanted to see where the account was registered, if it was legit, if there was anything off about it. That's when I noticed something. A phone number was linked to it. I don't know what came over me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to call. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was something else. Either way, after work, I sat in my car, just staring at my phone, debating if I should do it. What's the worst that could happen? I told myself. I dialed. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. A woman. Her voice was soft, tired. "Hello," I swallowed hard. Yeah, I just wanted to check. Did you receive the money? There was silence. Then a hesitant, yes, but I don't know who sent it. I exhaled. It was from your husband. The way she reacted, sharp, almost defensive, put a knot in my stomach. That's not possible. I sat up. What do you mean? Because my husband is dead. My body went cold. I didn't know what to say. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Finally, I forced out, when did he die? 4 months ago. I felt lightheaded. For months? I took a breath. Can we meet? There was another long pause, then a quiet. Where? We agreed on a busy cafe in Texas. I didn't want to go alone, so before I left, I shared my location with a friend, just in case. The whole drive there, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I arrived first. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I started to think she wouldn't show up. Just about to leave, I saw her, and my breath caught in my throat. She wasn't what I expected. She wasn't well-dressed. She looked exhausted, thin, like life had taken more from her than it had given. But the thing that shook me the most? She had a baby strapped to her back. 4 months old, maybe less. She walked up to me, hesitated, then stretched out her hand. Hello. I just stared. I couldn't bring myself to shake her hand. Not because I didn't want to, but because something about this whole thing felt wrong. I forced a weak smile. Hey! We sat down and I went straight to the point. Tell me about your husband. She sighed, adjusting the baby on her back. His name was Jose. He was a janitor. Worked in Texas, always trying to make ends meet. He was a good man. I nodded slowly. What happened to him? Her face tightened. One day, he left for work. Said he'd come home with money so we could get some groceries. She swallowed hard. But he never came home. A heavy silence hung between us. Later that night, I got a call. His boss told me he fell from a building. I felt something twist in my gut. And then what? She clenched her jaw. They took him to a morgue. Then she said the name of the place. Immediately my heart stopped. It was the same morgue near my house. The air left my lungs. My hands started trembling. I tried to play it off, but she noticed. Are you okay? She asked. I forced a nod. Yeah, I'm fine. But I wasn't. She sighed and shook her head. He's been there for 4 months now. I was fired 2 days ago. That money, it came at the right time. I was able to buy groceries for me and my baby. I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. I barely managed to whisper, "Where do you live?" She hesitated, then told me it was a shared apartment, and the rent was due in 2 months. I offered to drive her home. She refused at first, but I insisted. When we got there, I was shocked. It wasn't a home. It was just shelter. A small, broken-down building in a poor part of town. She smiled weakly as she stepped out of the car. Thank you for everything. I just nodded, watching as she disappeared into the building. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. Jose was dead. Had been dead for months. So who the hell was the man outside my house that night? Monday night, I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I lay there in the dark, eyes open, staring at the faint shadows on my ceiling. Every time I blinked, I saw him. The man. The wave. The way he stood outside my house. My mom firing 2 shots, but him just standing there like the bullets were nothing. And then that last thing he said before driving off. I'm not as bad as you think. At work the next morning, I was useless. Couldn't focus. Couldn't think straight. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. That bank account was still burned into my mind. That damn money. That woman. The way she looked at me when I told her who sent it. So, by noon I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and called her. She answered on the first ring. Hello. I swallowed. Can you meet me? Pause. Then, why? I hesitated. I want to go to the morgue. I need to see something. Silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, I'll come. The morgue was barely a 20-minute drive from my house, but the whole way there, neither of us spoke. The air in the car was thick, like a storm was pressing down on us. She looked different this time, more nervous. She was alone with her baby, sitting stiffly in the passenger seat, biting her lip as she tried to soothe the crying child. I almost turned around, but then we pulled up. The morgue wasn't some big, sterile hospital building like you'd see in movies. It was small, tucked behind a funeral home, the kind of place people don't even realize exists until they need it. We stepped inside, and the smell hit me first. Cold, stale. Something deeper beneath the surface, something rotting. A man in his late 50s sat behind the front desk, flipping through paperwork. His name tag read Willie. Can I help you? He asked, barely looking up. The woman stepped forward. I need to see my husband, Jose. At that, Willie scratched his chin. Jose, Jose. He squinted at the papers in front of him. Oh yeah, the janitor. Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. He stood up, motioning for us to follow. As we walked down the hall, he suddenly shook his head, letting out a small, breathy chuckle. You know, he said, almost like he was talking to himself, something weird happened the other day. I stopped walking. What do you mean? Willie turned to us. His face shifted, like he was about to say something he wasn't supposed to say. Then he let out a half laugh. Look, I don't know how, but I swear to God, man, that freezer was locked. I felt a sharp chill crawl up my spine. Willie kept talking, but his voice sounded distant now, like I was hearing him from underwater. But when I found him on Saturday, it looked like he hesitated. His throat bobbed. Then, almost laughing, he muttered, It looked like he walked there himself. The world stopped. The woman stiffened beside me. What does that mean? Willie just shrugged, smiled. I mean, one of my colleagues probably moved it. It's nothing. But I wasn't breathing. The words repeated over and over in my skull, circling like vultures. It looked like he walked there himself. That wave, that stare, the way he stood outside my house, hand in his pocket, watching me like he knew me. Willie nodded toward the back. Come on, you can go see the body. And then I grabbed his arm. No. Willie frowned. No. I shook my head. Fast. Too fast. I don't need to see it anymore. The woman whipped around, eyes wide. What? But we came all this way. I turned to her. I can't. She looked hurt, confused, like I had just betrayed her. Why not? I couldn't answer. Because the truth was, I already knew what I would see in there. And if I walked into that room and pulled back that freezer door, if I looked at that body, I wouldn't come out the same. I grabbed her wrist harder than I meant to. Let's go. She resisted, but I was already pulling her toward the exit. Willie called after us, confused. You sure, man? I mean, you came all the way here. But I didn't look back. I drove fast. The woman kept asking me what was wrong, why I was acting so weird, but I couldn't answer, because the only thing in my head was his face. The man outside my house. The same exact face I just saw in Willie's eyes when he said it. It looked like he walked there himself. That night, I lay in bed. Didn't sleep. My phone sat next to me, screen glowing. I opened my contacts, scrolled to her name, and blocked her. I had to. I told myself I needed to move on, to forget. And for a while, I almost believed it. A week. I lasted 1 week before I cracked. I had blocked her, cut her off, told myself it was over. But it wasn't, because every night, I still woke up gasping for air, drenched in sweat. The nightmares weren't stopping. Jose's face, that expressionless stare, the baby's cries, piercing, echoing, growing louder until it felt like my own head was about to split open. It didn't matter how much I tried to push it down. It didn't matter how much I tried to forget, because they weren't letting me. I don't even remember unblocking her. One moment, I was just staring at her name. The next, my phone was ringing, and she answered immediately. Hello. Her voice was different, hoarse, strained, like she'd been crying. I swallowed. Hey. Silence. A beat. Then, you blocked me. I said nothing. I kept calling. Her voice was getting shaky. I thought you were dead. That hit me, because the way she said it, I don't know, man. It sounded like she really, truly believed it. Like she wasn't just being dramatic. Like she had actually genuinely thought that I had disappeared too. Why did you unblock me now? She asked. I exhaled, rubbing my forehead. I don't know. A pause. Then, her voice softened. Are you okay? I almost laughed. Me? Okay. I was waking up every night gasping for breath, my mind rotting with things I couldn't explain, my entire sense of reality unraveling. But I just said, I'm fine. She was quiet for a long time, like she knew I was lying. But then she just whispered, No, you're not. I ignored that. I wanted to ask about the burial. How much? She let out a breath, like she hadn't been expecting that. I don't know. Maybe 2,000. I nodded to myself. Okay. She hesitated. Why? I didn't answer. I pulled up my banking app. My fingers hovered. I typed in the numbers. And then my chest went tight, because for some reason I wasn't typing 2,000. I was typing 5. My hands were shaking. And the moment the confirmation popped up, her breath hitched. Wait! Her voice was sharp. 5,000. I forced my voice steady. Make sure he's buried. A long, long silence. Then, she said something that made my stomach drop. I don't even know how you got my account number. I stiffened. Because my husband never sent me money through my bank. He always gave it to me in cash. The blood in my veins went cold. She was right. I never asked for her details. I never knew her account number. And yet I had sent the money. Just like that first time. Just like before. 2 weeks later, as I was driving home, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was her. For a second, I considered not picking up. I didn't know why. I had done what I could, the burial was over, and I wanted to put all of this behind me. But something in me hesitated. And before I could overthink it, I answered. Her voice came through shaky, fragile. Hello. Yeah, I said. There was a pause. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to say thank you. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, staring at the road ahead. It's fine. No, I mean it, she said quickly. I could hear the emotion in her voice. She sniffled, trying to hold back tears. Life hasn't been easy for me. Not at all. I didn't have money for food, for my child, for myself, let alone a funeral. And you, her voice cracked. You didn't have to do all this. I exhaled slowly. My stomach felt tight. It's fine, I repeated. There was silence on the line except for the faint sound of her baby fussing in the background. She was crying now, but trying to hide it. I don't know how to repay you, she finally said. You don't have to, I muttered. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, she said. Then the call ended soon after. I set my phone down and drove the rest of the way in silence. After that, I helped her find work. She started earning. I tried to move on, tried to convince myself that everything was over, that it was all just a bad memory. And thank God therapy helped too. But no matter how much time passed, no matter how much I tried to push it away, I never forgot. This all happened in 2019, and it's a memory I will never, ever forget. What do you think about Jose? Do you believe he was just a desperate man trying to survive? Or was there something more? Something supernatural? The way he appeared, the way things played out, was it all just a coincidence? Or was there something beyond explanation at work? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We've got a new video coming out tomorrow. You won't want to miss it.